Hello and welcome. We are in conversation with author Norman Finn about his fiction book, A Cause for All. Norman, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Where are you joining us from?
Well, I outside of Boston in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. It's a suburb of the city. It's about 15 minutes from downtown.
Awesome. Listen, your book's main character, Michael Johnson, takes readers into a world of intrigue, espionage, and international terrorism. Tell us more about the book.
Well, I can tell you more about the character first because I think that's the most interesting part. The I wanted to invent a character that wasn't a CIA agent or an espionage person, someone who actually fell into this whole thing of intrigue and all of a sudden he's in a whole new world that he's never been to, and develop a character around history and fit the character into that period.
Take us through an idea of the story behind the book.
Well, the story behind the book is fact. The story is the the period before the 67-day war in Israel, and the culmination is the war and how they handled it. So it's the period before and the actual war, and I wove the character into those particular parts of history.
So, what makes Michael tick?
I think what makes Michael tick is his heritage. If you remember, his father his father died when he was 6 weeks old at the hand of the Nazis. So he has this thing about fighting Nazism, fighting uh, anti-Semitism, fighting all of these things. It's part of his life, part of my life. So,
What inspired you to write A Cause for All?
well, I had written a memoir called Life in a Shoe, and then I decided I wanted to write something else, and I tossed it around, and uh, I went to school and studied history and international relations, and I kind of put the whole thing together using some of my experiences and some of the knowledge that I picked up over the years. And I wanted to develop, as I said, a character that wasn't uh, identified as an agent, in the sense that somebody that was totally new into that whole area.
How did you approach your writing to make it resonate with readers? Did you follow a specific writing style or draw inspiration from a favorite author?
I don't think I followed a favorite author. I just wrote what I thought was going to be interesting and it would be enjoyable, and which kind of fit with the facts. So the facts led me to develop the character.
So tell me more about your relationship with the character now. There's some interesting, a little bit more about your background and your history and your amazing success in the corporate world.
Well, I I grew up as in the footwear business, and somehow or another I ended up being a designer. I always was interested in art my whole life, and through a number of different lucky experiences and a lot of hard work, I ended up being a designer for a very large company, and moved to Italy and lived in Florence, Italy for many years, and designed a number of very, very good brands. Um, and eventually, I became head of product development of this company. and I was responsible for developing the business to the level of $2.7 billion. And I decided that I wanted to do my own thing. So I went into business for myself with my son and daughter-in-law, and we developed another brand. And we actually opened up the Orient for better footwear and apparel and developed that business. And eventually uh, sold it off in, what was it, 2014 or something like that.
Okay.
And didn't know what I wanted to do. I was used to working 12 to 14 hours a day. And all of a sudden, after my retirement and doing some consulting, I said, what am I going to do with my life? So I wrote Life in a Shoe, which led me again to write these other historical novels.
So the combination of like going from a personal memoir then to which is nonfiction to fiction, like the writing, how do you switch your brain to tackle that?
I don't know, it just kind of happens. I built these books based on experiences. I only used the experiences that I had. In other words, I've traveled the world many, many times over. Uh, just to realize this, I've probably been around the world trip at least 50 times,
That's a lot of time.
and spent a lot of time in Europe. I mean, it was a period of maybe 5 or 6 years where I used to have my hair cut in Paris. That's how many times I was in Paris.
Wow.
So I used all of these experiences and twisted them into fantasy a little, and brought them out and tried to put them in a book and develop this character that I probably would have liked to be.
How long did it take you to write the first book, I Shall Know Who I Am, from this series? How long did it take you to write that book?
Took me about 6 months.
That's it?
That's it.
6 months. And then how long did it take you to write your memoir?
I think about the same, maybe a little less.
Is
I
it?
didn't have to do the research. I knew what were
Yeah, exactly. So the research is quite it entails
Oh,
quite a.
the research is kind of crazy. The research, in order to write it the way I wanted to write it, as I said, the premise being fact and then working the characters in, it involves an awful lot of fact. And I didn't want to fool with the facts. I wanted the facts to stand and to build a story around it. So in order to do that, first of all, without the internet, forget about it. You can't write a book, especially this kind of a book. And I spent a lot of time researching on top of that.
So you've had a long time to spend developing Michael.
Yeah, he's kind of part of the family now. I mean, so I know the character, and he's kind of an interesting guy because, as I said, he's got a lot of other interests. I mean, he's very creative. He's into the arts. Uh, he's got all of this other abilities that usually you don't relate to people who are in the spy business.
What is it about his character that captures your essence?
Uh, he was a kind of a, he was sensitive. He was creative. He understood the intricacies of art and design, which is what I like, which is what I do. I was only replicating myself in many ways.
What is your process? I mean, some people are, I'm just curious because I've heard that saying and I kind of feel like we all have a book in us. What is your
Oh, I
writing?
think I think everybody has a book in.
Yeah,
Just the question of whether they want to put it down on paper.
right.
Uh, well, I I live a kind of a different kind of a life because every morning I paint. I, I I'm a fairly accomplished artist. There's a gallery a very good gallery in Boston that shows my work. So I paint in the morning and I write in the afternoon. That's my life.
That's your life. And there's a connection there with the writing that it's from my understanding and my experience, you're compelled to do it. It's almost like it's important just to get it out.
Absolutely.
What do you enjoy most about it and the characters in your book?
I enjoy the part when I can say to myself, gee, I accomplished this. I put it down and I really like what I've written because sometimes you don't like what you write.
How do you know that you're on the right track? Or do you go through phases where you're writing and then it's like, yeah, no, we have to go in a different direction?
Well, the problem with writing some kind of a thriller, because it is somewhat of a thriller, is you have the tendency to paint yourself into a corner, and then you've got to find a way out. Uh, so that's always the problem. And sometimes it's a good problem because it really makes you think and how you want to handle the situation.
What is the biggest challenge that you faced in writing this book and your other books?
Well, I can say this. The sequel that I'm writing now is probably the most difficult because it's the period after the 67-day war that takes you into the 1973 Yom Kippur War, which was a lot more complicated. And my whole basis, as I said earlier, was trying to take the history and fit the characters in the story into the history. And the history is incredibly complicated, a lot more than people would ever think. Because when I got into it, I didn't realize what was going on in the world, not only in Israel, but all over the world. The situation between the US and the Soviet Union. We came to DEFCON 3 over this situation. I never realized that myself until I started writing and researching the book.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to be most interested? What type of readers do you think this book is going to attract?
I think people that are interested in the whole area. That's number one. Uh, and people who want a new approach to thrillers, because it is a different approach to thrillers.
What makes it different?
I haven't read a thriller yet that has taken somewhat of that approach. I used a character that was totally different than what most people write about. An artist, a creative person.
As you said, the character becomes sort of like a personal friend and a family friend.
Oh, he's definitely part of the family.
Now, selling an independent title is challenging. What advice would you give to aspiring authors on writing a successful book?
You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in what you're writing. That's number one. Um, and you got to be honest with yourself. I mean, is it really good? Is it really worth it? Am I willing to spend my money to put it out there? Because you're publishing it yourself, basically. So I think all of those factors got to weigh into it.
And when it comes to the next book, are you halfway through, or how long is
I've
it going to?
I've I've actually completed the manuscript,
Okay.
but the rewrite is in the process now.
And how challenging is the rewrite? I mean,
Very,
yeah, it's hard to let
very,
go, isn't it, of certain things?
very challenging because Yes, and I've had an opportunity to talk to somebody that I respect a lot about the book, who's looked at the book, more than looked at the book, has read the book in a sense, and has given me some ideas that are very, very good.
And with that, when can we expect to see that next title?
It'll be done and probably it'll be out before the first of the year.
What are your future writing plans after this trilogy?
I don't know. I haven't decided. I think I would. I think I probably would like to write something totally different. I've thought of. I've not thought of. I had planned and still planning, in a sense, to release the first book, Life in a Shoe. It's been 10 years since I've written the book, and I'm seriously considering releasing it as Life in a Shoe Revisited, adding 10 years to it and a bunch of things that happened since, and expanding a part of the book that I didn't cover before my earlier years. So that's a project. And on top of that, I'm very much into art and have been fairly successful at it. So I'm torn between both things. As I said, I try to paint in the morning and write in the afternoon.
I don't know. Do you think it's going to be hard to let Michael go?
I'm not sure I'm going to let him go, but maybe he's ready for another story.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
So to recap, you in this series, the first one is I Shall Know Who I Am.
right.
Book 2, which is out now, A Cause for All.
Yeah.
And the third book is on its way. And when do you think we can see that one in stores?
I would say before the first of the year. Could be for Christmas.
Okay. Where can readers find your books right now?
Well, on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, I believe there's a number of bookstore chains that they're distributing the book to now.
I think I've read A Books and Books a Million stores.
Yes, yes, yes.
What is the best way for readers to connect with you?
Well, on my email address, nfin at Horizon, that's Horizon. F is in Frank, T is in Thomas, W is William, R is in Ronald, FDWR.com.
Norman, thank you so much for taking the
My
time.
pleasure.
It
My
was a
pleasure.
pleasure. I've been in conversation with author Norman Finn. His book, A Cause for All, is available now.